Thank you for the introduction, and also thanks to the organizers for giving us the opportunity to speak to you today. So Sarah and myself are part of the Program Grants for Applied Research team, and we'll be introducing our processes to you today. So I'll be giving you a quick overview of program grants and our selection criteria. I'll also be introducing the new career capacity building scheme that we've already heard about just now, and talking about the commissioning process and monitoring. And then Sarah will be talking about the program development grant scheme. So first of all, where does program grants sit in the wider funding environment and timeline? So we're mostly in the valuation space, but also moving into adoption right now. So we have two funding streams in program grants for applied research. One is the program grants itself, and then we have the program development grants. So out of the program grants, we have 300 funded in total. They're usually 5 to 6 years long. We have 111 active projects in our portfolio right now, with the largest award having a funding of £3.9 million and an overall spend of £615 million. It's a little bit of an overview of what kind of research we fund. So we usually fund programs of research, which are usually several interrelated work packages rather than individual studies. There's no funding or time limit for these individual awards, but we usually don't see anything in excess of 2.5 million or more than 6 years. We also do make our funding to the NHS organizations or other providers of NHS services in England that then work in collaboration with appropriate academic partners. That being said, the academic partners can also be outside of England if that's appropriately justified. We assess our applications in a two-stage process, and we run 3 competitions per year that are launching in February, June, and October. And we also participate in the NIHR themed calls. We also have something called pre-submission forms. There'll be a link at the end of the slides that can be shared with you later, but where you can actually submit your ideas and for any programs when you're planning a program grant application, and we will receive this form, and then that can be reviewed by one of our committee chairs to give you some feedback before you submit your applications. A few examples of what kind of things we support and what we look out for. So we look out for practical applications and benefits to patients, service users, and carers. Generally applied health and social care research, and the health service research, public health research, also behavioral research, economic evaluations, and modeling. We look for balanced teams and large teams of leading researchers from the NHS and academia who work together and who also demonstrate an impressive track record. We generally really like to support diverse methodological approaches. So usually our programs are geared towards complex interventions and randomized controlled trials, but we're trying to encourage also some other diverse methodological approaches here, and this is particularly welcomed. We also like to encourage multidisciplinary approaches with this. Here's some examples of the kinds of research areas we have funded over the last year. So you can see that there's a lot of applications that we've received in the mental health space. However, that's not to say that we prefer applications in a specific research area. We welcome all applications. We do have highlight notices that target certain areas, but that doesn't mean that they will be funded preferentially. In terms of our selection criteria, what our committee members will be looking for is the relevance to priorities and needs of the NHS. Again, as I said before, the benefit to patients and service users and the wider population. and also the quality, of course, of the proposed research, then they will be having a good look at all the applicants, their track records, and that the team has the appropriate mix of skills to deliver the specific program that is being applied for. Also, value for money is very important to us. And then patient-public involvement and engagement is something that we really encourage throughout the whole research cycle at any stage of your research. So if you can demonstrate that you have PPIE involvement throughout your program, and even when drafting the application, or also after your program has finished, this is really important as well. And we also like to see that equality, diversity, and inclusion is adequately addressed. So working with any underserved communities and minorities is also important to us. And I'm happy to introduce a new scheme that we've just added. This is the Career Capacity Building Scheme. It was launched in February this year from Competition 41. And basically, our research programs can now formally include funding for research capacity development. And this goes across all the stages of the academic career pathway. So this would be for anything from internships to masters to PhDs or postdoc positions that can be formally recognized through this. So the applications that include this career capacity development for methodological disciplines are particularly welcomed as well. And the good thing about this is that people who are supported through the scheme will be members of the NIHR Academy, and they will have access to all the personal development, the training and career support activities, and all the funding opportunities through the NIHR Academy as well. And if you are intending to apply to this scheme, you can just flag this in your stage 1 application. I'll be talking about the exact application process later, but the details will only be required at the 2nd stage later. A few of the application requirements for this. So we do look for appropriate capacity building in the specific field that would be relevant to your specific program grant. Then we expect the people supported through the scheme and then becoming NIHR Academy members to be competitively recruited, have a detailed training plan and a defined endpoint for their projects. The positions can be fully funded through us without any need for secondary stipends and can be started at any time of the year. However, you should not allocate more than 10% of the overall program grant budget on career capacity building. In terms of how to facilitate this, there will be a named point of contact for training and developments. We call it NPC for short, that you will have to name, and they will then be the first point of contact for all the NIHR Academy related matters, and will be communicating through them with the people supported through the scheme. And specifically for graduate fellowships, I just wanted to emphasize as well that we do pay all the tuition fees, college fees, salaries, and we also have training allowances, and we're covering costs for conferences as well. So this should be quite a comprehensive package for people who are supported through this. So now I'll be talking through the commissioning process a little bit. So I'd already mentioned that this is a 2-stage process before ratification. So in our first stage, we have a committee comprising of our program director and then our committee chairs who are also from the stage 2 committee, and then general health services researchers from our stage 2 committee as well. And the core reviewing will be done by 2 lead assessors, which will be the generalists and PPIE committee members that will review each of the applications. They will be looking for feasibility. So can the team deliver the program? The rationale of the program, is this an important question, a priority area? Has the research been designed with reference to any appropriate review of the existing literature? They will be looking at the relevance and scientific quality of the research, looking at whether this is value for money, and a good way to spend public money. And then we also include a lay summary or plain English summary that will be specifically assessed by the PPIE committee members and the lead assessors as well. And if the applications are shortlisted, they will then go through to stage 2. At stage 2 of our review process of the applications, we're sending the applications for external peer review. There are usually 4 of them. And at the same time, there will also be a committee methodological review from our side. At the same time by our statisticians, health economists, or behavioral qualitative experts and PPIE members. And at this stage, after the external review and the internal review is completed, the applicants will have the chance to rebut. And then once this is done, we have another committee meeting. And once the applications are then decided to be funded through the committee, they have to go through final approval by the Department of Health and Social Care before we notify the outcomes. A little bit of an overview of our success rates. So as you can see, the success rates are actually quite good. And once applications have been shortlisted after the stage 1, they're then around 70% likely to actually get funded. So we actually have quite good success rates through this process. Then a little bit about our monitoring. Once a program has been funded and the contract has been signed, we ask programs to have a program steering committee, so PSC, of independent experts that convene at least once per year to give advice on the program and also to approve any minor changes that may be made. Then we do ask also for annual progress reports that provide us with formal updates. And then usually, because our programs are very large programs of research, we have them funded in 2 stages. So there will be a setup stage, which also tests the feasibility usually of the program. And then that will be connected to a first release of funding. And then there will be a checkpoint report at that stage where we assess the progress against agreed deliverables. And when they're met, then the program is allowed to proceed to the next stage, and the next stage of funding is released. And for those programs that do trials or clinical trials, we expect also quarterly recruitment updates, so we can just keep an eye out for any issues with recruitment. And finally, there's a final report, and that is published in our NIHR journals library. This brings us to Sarah, who will be introducing our program development grant scheme.
Thanks very much, Lisa. So our program development grants are basically a wraparound for our main program grants. They're there to sort of enhance the value of our program grants. There are traditionally 3 different types of PDG at the moment, and we do have an extra little one that's happening this year as well, which I'll talk about in a minute. Mostly they're 12 to 24 months in length. Currently, we've got over 30 active projects. We've funded 139 projects to date so far, and we've spent just over 16.7 million. So as I was saying, there are 3 different streams. We have a stream A, which is before the program grant. So the idea of this is to basically undertake preparatory work to strengthen your future PG application. When you apply for this, you are asked about what your future PG application might be. There's, you don't have to put loads of detail in, but we do ask for some idea of what you're wanting to do with your future program grant. So yeah, the idea of that is to basically develop things. This might be needing to do further scoping work in literature, maybe gathering some data together, working on sort of relationships and other things within that. So it's pretty broad in terms of what you can do, as long as you justify this is going to be for your program grant. And then we've got 2 stream Bs. The reason for this is that we traditionally did our post program grant, and that was our stream B, but we've now brought in this new one, which is during your program grant. So once you've been funded for your program grant and you've got your contract signed, This basically enables you to apply for another sort of section of money, and this is basically additional work that adds value to your main program grant. We are also highlighting that we'd like this to be led by an early or mid-career researcher if possible, and appropriate. And yeah, the idea of this is that sometimes in a 5-year program grant, you'll start your program off, think you know like where you're going with it, and then there'll be something else that crops up that's really, really interesting, and you'll think, oh, I'd really like to be able to investigate that further. So that's basically what this bit is there for. So you know, it can be additional things around PPIE, it could be additional things around EDI, it could be additional data analysis. Again, it's as broad as possible. And then our third stream is the second type of stream B, which is our post program grant stream B. And this is it's traditionally been used for further work in terms of dissemination. We're very keen on anything around implementation activities because we are, as Lisa said, moving more into the sort of implementation phase of things. So yeah, it could be any of those. It could also be further data analysis. Again, you know, something interesting crops up, and you know, right towards the end of the work, and you're thinking, oh, we really could do with, you know, doing this as well. So we have a maximum of one of each of these types of PDG per program grant. So once you've got one program grant, obviously you'd have had your stream A already, so you can only have one stream A. You get your program grant, you have one stream B that occurs during the program grant, and then one that follows on afterwards. So for all three types of these streams, they're typically 12 to 24 months in length. And we do have a ceiling limit of £150,000, so you can't apply for more than that. It is capped at 150,000. We have only a one-stage assessment process, so it's a little bit quicker, I guess. And again, they're reviewed by members of our Stage 2 subcommittees, so similar to the Stage 1 programme grant sort of assessment process. We also have 3 competitions in a year, and we launch a month later than the programme grant, so March, July, November. And we're also included in the themed calls and the highlight notices that the programme grants do, and then sometimes we'll additionally have some other ones that we do that programme grants don't do. Our reporting and monitoring is more light touch than the main programme grants. Obviously, if you're doing a 24-month programme, you'll have an annual progress report to do. Other than that, it's generally a final report that is required. This doesn't go through Journals Library currently, although this is up for review. And just to highlight a few of the sort of recent successes, programme development grants, obviously, because it's around programme grants, it very much depends on what's going on with our portfolio at the time. But Call 34 that closed last November or December, they received 48 applications. This includes the partnerships highlight notice, which I'm about to talk about in a minute. That was our most popular round ever. It took us a little bit by surprise, but we were very, very pleased to see how popular it was. And then our most recent call that's just closed received 27 applications, and this is our most popular standalone round because it did not have the partnerships highlight on it. So I've just mentioned it, I'll describe it a little bit more. So to give it its full title, we are running this thing called Developing Innovative, Inclusive and Diverse Public Partnerships Call. And I call it Partnerships Call 2023 for short. So we first ran this last year in 2022 as a highlight notice because we weren't sure how much interest there was going to be for this. And yeah, it was run through PDG 34. We ended up funding 16 projects, which we're very, very pleased with. And so we're running it again this year as a dedicated call rather than a highlight because we need to take it out of our normal PDGs because everything's getting quite busy in programme development grants now. So it's got its own dedicated call. We are launching towards the end of August this year and closing, I think, around mid-October. The dates are still being confirmed. And we're hoping that the outcomes will be expected in sort of late spring 2024. Obviously, we're going to go over Christmas. There's always a little bit of a dead zone, so there'll be a few delays in terms of reviewing and committee meetings, etc. The way that this call particularly differs to our normal programme development grants, they don't need to lead to a programme grant. So all of the other streams that I've explained, they are tailored around a programme grant and sort of tethered to it, whereas these sort of stand alone. So normally we would say you need to have an idea of something to do for a program grant, you don't need to for this. So it's away from the quotas of the stream A's and the stream B's, and it could potentially lead on to another program development grant back in our standard PDG calls, or you may end up being able to get funding from somewhere else. It may lead to maybe going to RFPB, for instance, rather than staying with us in program grants. They also differ for the fact they're 6 to 18 months in length, so they don't go up to the 24, and they can also be a little bit shorter. I think last year we funded at least 2 that were 6 months in length rather than the normal 12 to 24. And the focus on this is very much about sort of, I've put true partnerships there, sort of it's a partnership with the community. Lisa mentioned before that we're very big on PPIE really being part of the process right from the beginning, and this is really highlighted in this. So it's very much a case of a community, whatever sort of community that might be, you know, coming up with a research question or developing a research question in partnership with researchers, and being involved in every single stage of the projects. And also about new voices being heard. So, you know, sometimes it's very much a case of like, you know, a focus group you've been running for a very long time and you're always asking them. This is very much kind of trying to find new voices that don't often get heard. So we've just listed here a few further information links basically for both program grants and program development grants. Apologies, the last link for partnerships call is not available yet because we are hoping to launch by the end of this week. We're just slightly delayed on that, but we are hoping to have a webinar for the partnerships call in possibly late July. It's looking like at the moment, again, dates to be confirmed, but yeah, please keep checking back to our website and on Twitter and things, because we'll obviously release those dates once we have them. Thank you very much. And then just to say, any questions, here is our inbox email. It has just changed our email address. So before it was program.grants@nihr.ac.uk, and it's now PGfAR. Both of those email addresses still work for the time being, but this is our new one, so please use that as preference. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, it gives me great pleasure to talk about skills in the team, and we felt it important to include a session around this because we are working with this morning with program grants, and there is an expectation to work in a multidisciplinary way and collaboratively, not just locally but nationally as well, but also across the NHS with HEIs as well. So it's important to consider the different elements that are required in a funding application. So it is important to think about having all experts that you require in your research team. Try to have a named, and I'll go through this separately, try to have a named person for each job. The role of the principal investigator is really quite critical, and it may or may be somebody with a track record, and if not, potentially somebody with a mentor. But it's also important to have a team of methodological experts as well to support your project, to ensure that it is deliverable on time, which the funding committee will look out for. So, as I said, to begin with, it's important to have a named person for each role. I mean, it might be something, a sort of a different way of working if you've previously undertaken research as a lone wolf before. Certainly program grants or program development grants wouldn't expect you to deliver all aspects of the work yourself, and for program grants and other grants under NIHR, you wouldn't be expected to have the expertise, but actually for you to bring together people to be able to complete that project. But in order for that project to look deliverable, it's important that each member of the team have clearly defined responsibilities to ensure that, and you need to ensure that when you're writing your application, that the members of the team are aware of their role and that there aren't blurring of lines between different members of the team. It's also important to consider the sort of FTE or full-time equivalent, or the amount of time somebody might be working on your project, and that needs to be put in, as I said, full-time equivalent. It might be 10%, 20%, or more of a role, but that needs to be discussed with each member of your team, and that is costed appropriately for the application. And it's important to have the support of lay members of your team, and so that would be your PPI members or your lay members. And it might also be, if you have new people who haven't been involved in a research project before, is there capacity, is there funding available and capacity for somebody to support lay members of the team who may have accessibility requirements? And it's important, once you've sort of put your team together, to sit back and think, well, who might be missing? So I think it's important to bring the team together with quite clearly defined roles, and to be assigning responsibility. But that doesn't necessarily reduce your input on the project, but you have to think about it, that in fact it might give you the capacity to handle greater responsibility and oversight of that project. So it's really important to have a named person for each role, and that those people who you have involved sort of feel empowered and have a sense of ownership of their particular part of that project. That they might be a work package lead, for instance, but that doesn't detract from your own responsibilities either. So it basically releases you to focus on other aspects of the project, maybe managing the project, doing sort of the reporting that NIHR would expect of you. So, of course, it's important to have a principal investigator or a chief investigator, and that person generally takes the overall lead and overall responsibility for running and delivering the project. And in program development grants, it is usually someone who is a leader in the field or who has a good track record. In some cases, not necessarily for program grants, potentially for RFPB, it's important that you have a mentor, for instance, who you will be able to have a frequent catch-ups and regular meetings with them if any sort of unexpected issues crop up with your research project. But it's important to write that in to your application, to have a mentor, and to describe what that role will involve and how often you will meet with your mentor. And also for program development grants, as part of your team, you would be expected to have other specialists and other methodologists involved in your study. So that can be quite a large team in program development grants. So clearly, if you're running a controlled study, a trial, to have a statistician on board, that is costed appropriately, as well as a health economist. If you're doing a trial, you may have other methodologists, mixed methodologists. As I said, it's important to have service user representatives, as well as qualitative experts or behavioural experts who will be able to undertake some of the data collection, or at least be able to advise and have a research assistant to be able to do some of that data collection. But you also need to think about the wider members of the team, as I've flagged up previously. So not only those members of the team within your research project itself, but there might be, for instance, your patient representatives, and that's an essential part of any NIHR application, to have public involvement. You've heard this term, patient and public involvement, or for social care and projects, that's service user involvement, or experts by experience. There are various different names that we may want to include people, lay users, on a grant application. So for those of you who may be unfamiliar with NIHR funding programs, lay representatives form an important part of the decision-making process when grants are actually reviewed. Reviews of grants are commissioned before it even gets to the committee stage. So lay reviewers will actually review that application, but also they are part of the grant panel themselves. So it's important, for instance, to target your plain English summary around a non-scientific audience, not only for those lay members, but for other members as well who are non-scientific, who are non-specialists. In your grant application, it's important to highlight the involvement of service users in all aspects of your program, of your application. So from the design of your study, it's important, even before you've sort of started completing your application form, it's important to consult service users about your study, around the design of the study itself, and then to treat those experts as people who are able to share their experience, and you can get feedback from them. They can discuss with you, what some of the issues might be with your recruitment strategy, your sampling strategy, for instance. And of course, they do have a pivotal role in the dissemination of the study's outcomes and disseminating the impact of the study. So a really good place to start actually is to have lay review of your plain English summary, as that is the first place that any reviewer or panel member will read. And I'm a member of the Research for Patient Benefit panel for the Northwest, and that's certainly the first thing that I read, and getting a lay review of that will increase the readability of your plain English summary. It's a really ideal place to involve service users. Okay, and if you are applying for a larger study or under program grants, it is important to think about your wider team, and especially who is going to be part of your research management structure. So does that, you may need to involve a steering group, a data monitoring ethics committee, and that committee sits separately to the research group, and it will have a chair, and it acts as a sort of a scrutiny and oversight committee for the study. That it might involve stakeholders and service users, charity representatives, health service commissioners, and it deals with general oversight of the project, data monitoring issues, and any ethical issues that may crop up. And if you are running a controlled study, a trial, which program grants do see a lot of, it's important to include a trial manager, as well as to have clinical trials unit involvement. And you might think, what role does a trial manager actually do? So it's important for very large studies, multi-site studies, that trial managers actually sort of look after and manage that trial as it runs through its life course. And their chief responsibility is often to prepare the protocols for the study, undertake case reports, and undertake any tasks around the finalization of data and data management. And they also take responsibility for getting ethical approval, developing any recruitment strategies to help increase patient randomization in the trial. And they might be responsible for the provision of clinical trials materials, and they do sort of that overall coordination of the trial to ensure its smooth management. And getting a CTU involved is also important if you have a large study. If for those of you who might not be familiar with clinical trials units, those are specialists units that have a specific remit to design, conduct, analyze, and publish clinical trials. And they provide expertise in, for instance, statistics, epidemiology, and other methodological advice. And they are generally responsible to centrally coordinate the delivery of multi-center trials. Okay, so to summarize issues around, what are the critical aspects of a research team, and what sort of ingredients you're required to include. So being part of a research team really requires working collaboratively across a multidisciplinary way across different specialties. It's important to include lay members as part of your research group, and also separately as part of your project steering committee. The research team itself will include different members with a broad, and it will include a broad spectrum of expertise, and it may actually differ from your own research training, but that's exactly why you need them, so that they can sort of offer insight into providing collaboration and consultation on how to develop a different part of your study. And larger studies, and those that programme grants see, will require some study support in the form of research management, as well as the involvement of a clinical trials manager and a clinical trials unit.